Bajadegem kegweski chinuidegan numiga mewaj. Nega ugek punk ewa susudisiawian kodem en sibur. Nemech ni buktel wisis kak sisip kula det Gespeg ewagi galuigen egewe magamige umiga magig.
Kisuti Westcodeman sit kokoy. Mega kisuk Westcoot. Kisuk achtan weda Bexi nachtan tantela Codeman nachtan de sit kokoy. Mo pasaka paslisuti.
The language is fundamental. The language is your heart and your soul, and you speak from your heart and your soul. Mi'kmaq is actually our original language. That's, in generations, that's been our mother language. We have recognized ourselves as a nation by taking the first step, by recognizing our own language.
Well, each winter, 7 sparks flew out of the fire, and they landed at the same time, and 7 women and 7 men were created, and then they made 7 families, and wherever the 7 families went, this is where we have our 7 districts.
Gesgapegiag is right here, and it's the biggest territory, and we live in it.
Language is part of our identity, that we belong to this certain tribe, we belong to the Mi'kmaq nation. I think it's important for us to relearn the language, reconstruct it, revive it in any way that we can, because it's our birthright.
Like my daughter's 11 months old and I speak to her in Mi'kmaq because I want her to know the language, and the rule is with her grandparents, her Giju and Dad, I tell them you don't speak to her in English, and they support that because they know how important it is. For how I feel, it's very important that my daughter grow up that I want that to be her first language.
Which are the public wide beginning. 내가 원노이 속되고 미국의 속되고 가지고 단지 바베과 미스과제가 미스과제 미셔너리스가 먹진도 대중도 뭐 내가 뭐 그당스도 미리고 뭐 랭귀지는 내가 데리비도 시군도 사베도 사.
Well, I think that when our land got taken away, everything else fell into place and everything else got taken away. And I think that's one of the reasons why language got taken away and how come I don't know it. And I'm sure I'm not the only one. Like a lot of people from Gespeg and Gespeg do not know the language. And even my grandma, who was 81 years old, she doesn't even know the language. And I think she should have the right to know that at her age, and she's Gespeg as much as anybody else.
Well, I don't think it's a big secret that the government of Canada, the federal government, had a plan. It was a systematic plan to eliminate Mi'kmaq, not Mi'kmaq, but Native language and culture as a way to solve what it viewed as the Indian problem, which started around several avenues were used. Probably one of the worst of which was residential schools and day schools on top of that.
Well, some of us were sent to residential school, that's why how we lost our language. And the others, they thought that letting their kids speak English, it would be better than Mi'kmaq. But they shouldn't have done that. Even myself, I'm really sorry that happened to me. But it wasn't my fault that happened. It was taken away from me. Now I'm trying to get back on it.
Alasia gululakta me unjiglie do alasia wisis chemonnu wisis. Paredo tlimi minuksit bomu ajina. Bija ka wika tuna da ayenu e.
Ma talvidu me mat time go get laps to me vaija. Ma deli smart de me numisin. Stupid evides numisin, That's the old Allah, Allah school or whatever. but it's not. It's a proven fact. Listuguj nen men absolut quite Jamaica is average Joe, you know. So.
Welcome na ai mi majuna na deli mod na doji na ha. Kado ai je monagino na doji gay do kop dan del siga diji. Mana geduk saga do di ba li so di ya mana geduk saga la di ban amigo me wajo. Li so di ai mo ogun musiko benige el menel. Standing when gegina mo gom kelly je na doji mo ogun mo ma gabai li so di el men nach ani absmolo do chi tandelisic.
Because from what I know from the residential schools, they weren't allowed speaking their language, and that had a big effect. And then for a long time it was the idea that speaking Mi'kmaq was not good, so a lot of people didn't speak it. And now that we're able to speak it, a lot of people have lost the language, and hopefully it does come back. But I mean, it's a lack of speaking it with your peers and speaking it all the time, as opposed to speaking English.
Now I think the people starting to change. Some of the young people want to take back all the language, and I think it's very good. It's a start.
About it and a lot of things, and I'd like to learn it because I wasn't taught it, and I think that the language is kind of dying and slowly dying, but if we can bring it back up, I'd like to learn it. So, and I'm sure I'm not the only one. Out of the 700 people in Gespeg, I'm sure I'm not the only one who would like to learn it also, who didn't have a chance to.
Yeah, I like it when most people speak to me, because my mom, when I go to Maine to see my mom, and she talks to me and I understand it, that's how I'm learning more and more, mostly by my parents.
I see it disappearing and maybe a couple of people using it, but if we maybe get a program in the schools, then kids would be more interested in it and want to start learning it, and then they can teach their children when they get older.
I think the young ones should learn it so that they could teach it to other ones, and then tell the elders to start speaking it again.
Dan you not gelsin na nelisin migamuituga na nakoi litun gil lamek eto. Dan you momitua chicho gumo na gift li sudia, well it'll neglect all it nelk. Gato meski na neglect.
Debiak age kinama sudiak debiak de matan kabanol in delaway my age. Magis tokan no age kabanol. I'm pagan mortar down by it'll dawen. Kadwa amas pamawulugunim dan des is no age. Ginama sudiak kun dan des it kisi good and then watch your age. Maui dam neya do kabanol hey. Menani name odiekla. Memana koi agically igen mulu a koi. Kadwa
Menige tluak matchewais megide midich ach pipaniges hurtisit koida na hut talkis naula tami wettaya dan in de lade gena wono de magina umichka michakis na ukumichakis na dan de la kusida dan wettaya lija pastan delisut libnekau mega teleaistet luek kewisinka megeduk chido me mekitet nige danuenich.
Guys, no ma Gespeg Listuguj no bijak klowen na moi mudi no. Bijak koye ja bijak koy delowen out certain things. They are going to my own not koy out west school na. And no easy enough so me de guys ja. Yeah, they got me connection they got kamla muka aja tija amijito certain al ninen mawidaega iga sotie atawe ya anuito me wel sound me fanye me akizoti na nita bolo na monestamo na nauji ala zevito delimcha Varune var doch joke.